Events were now happening rapidly. In 2 hours of concentrated work, I managed to concoct a medley of situations that could have come from the lowest grade novels and films, added some songs, and finally arrived at an erotico-musical tragedy that the Tigress demanded to sign as co-author. I brought together a troupe of respectable actors, found a high-quality stage designer, a very talented musician, an excellent choreographer, and a very fashionable Argentine singer for the important role of Julius Caesar. In 10 days, rehearsing 12 hours a day, I fixed the style of the actors' interpretations, the decor, the dances, costumes, and musical accompaniments. And I accomplished all of this without the presence of our Lucretia, whom we had decided would prepare her songs separately. When she finally was to appear in rehearsal, we were waiting with great enthusiasm and impatience, eager to see the creation of the complex character of the poisoner. I was confident that with intense work, I would be able to present her to the public, transformed into a great actress. Rehearsal time was set for 9 in the morning, but the Tigress did not show up. 5 hours passed. We left to eat some cheese crepes. When we returned, she was still not there. At 6 o'clock, the stagehands evicted us because they had to set up for the 7:30 performance of Nana. Worried, I asked Gloria if her cousin was sick. She only shrugged, dashing my hopes. That's the way my boss is. She doesn't like rehearsals. She's very tired when she finishes performing. She sleeps late and then has to deal with the press, her makeup, and so forth, and the day just goes by. But what are we going to do if she doesn't rehearse? Trust her. On opening night, right in the middle of your strict scene, she'll improvise everything. And don't worry about her memorizing the text. She has these little electronic devices to wear in her ears, and a prompter will be whispering her lines to her. I paled. I was about to protest, but Gloria changed the subject. How is your wife doing? Are the rehearsals going well for her? No problems? None. She is a responsible individual. Her sorceress will be a true creation. I must warn you to beware. In my boss's mind, though these press stories are of course instigated by her, what the media say is more real than the truth. This morning, she sent me to a pet store to buy a black cat, and she also had me buy silk ribbons and beeswax. I'm sure she's preparing a curse to separate couples. With the beeswax, she'll make 2 dolls, a man and a woman. After painting them with her menstrual blood, she'll pin photos of you and Valerie on the head of each doll. Then, she'll fasten them to 2 boards with black, white, and red ribbons woven together, and throw the boards in 2 gutters very far away from each other. I repeat, beware. Don't drink anything she offers you. She's planning to sacrifice the cat, and she'll try to get you to drink a bit of its blood, which could be mixed with anything. Also, she'll keep the severed head of the cat in her refrigerator, and its mouth will be the names of you and Valerie, written on a bow of ribbon stolen from a cemetery. The head will remain in the refrigerator until the day you separate. In spite of my awareness that the cousin could be lying about this, I felt a shudder through my entire body. I remembered a koan from the secret book that I hadn't understood until then. While Master Renzai was going toward the great hall to give a speech. A monk interrupted him. "What if they threaten us with a sword?" Rinzai muttered. "Disaster, disaster," and added the commentary. "When waves rise up like mountains and fish become dragons, it is stupid to use a bucket to try to empty the ocean." Rinzai was about to speak to his disciples, in other words, to use intellectual means to communicate knowledge to them. The monk was saying that beautiful ideas are useless in the face of an enemy who can kill us. Yet, Rinzai's repetition of the word disaster did not refer to the impotence of the intellectual when we have a sword at our throat. Nor was he saying that to be threatened with death is simply a catastrophe, in spite of all edifying teachings. The two disasters refer instead to the notion that the monk held of himself and of his master. When teachings are reduced to mere explanations, it is a disaster, because the monk is identified with his own intellect. When we identify ourselves with a system of ideas, with who we think we are, then we are paralyzed with the fear of losing ourselves in the face of death. But Rinzai has realized his awakening and surrendered to the simple happiness of being. He has ceased to identify himself with his own image and dwells in inner silence. He is not identified with his teachings, for they are not himself. They are only efforts to describe impersonally the way to peace. Takata said of this koan, "Some come, others go. I am a stone on the road." Rinzai tells the monk, "You see yourself and me as two minds, disaster and disaster. That is why you think a sword could upset us. A murderer might be able to cut off my head without blinking an eye, but I can also let my head be cut off without blinking an eye. Even when the waves and sea creatures attack you, for reality does not behave according to your expectations. Your inner silence is unperturbed. To measure life with your intellect is as stupid as trying to empty the ocean with a bucket. Zen is the same, whether in the peace of a monastery or in the midst of combat. The disaster is not in the attack. Let go of the separate self and give yourself to the combat with joy, as if it were a dance with yourself." I brought the members of the troop together and calmly informed them of the problem. I proposed that we walk out on the Tigresses and find another theater where we could stage an honest performance with a genuine actress. With the exception of the Argentine singer, everyone agreed that it was degrading for us to serve the vanity of a capricious diva, and they decided to follow me. The newspapers were chock full of headlines announcing the end of the romance. Finally, someone had dared to defy the Tigress, and her response was not long in coming. It was a low blow, something I had not expected at all, and several tabloid headlines appeared that said such things as, "Avant-garde artist swindles the Tigress." Others said I was in hiding, sought by the police. The diva herself was quoted as saying I had stolen a large sum of her money. In their legal consequences, these lies were harmless, but they certainly succeeded in tarnishing my image. I could have denied the libel strenuously, But in Mexico, it seemed useless because of the power of the proverb, where there's smoke, there's fire. So now I was a crook. This insult created a breach in my intellect like a Cohen. My feeling of shame became a good lesson. Until this point, my disputes with the tigress had been a kind of game, a sort of artistic bargaining. By accusing her of laziness, it's true that I was making fun of her, but with a sane humor and one that was based on truth. She had responded with the arms at her disposal, newspaper scandals and clever lies. I had discredited her artistically, but she had demolished me socially. I recalled her words spoken with great conviction during the night of our mezcal drunken session. A small, weak boxer is in the ring with a big, strong adversary. The big guy starts to beat up the little guy. Now that the little guy is me, when the big guy rushes at me for the I pull a pistol out of one of my gloves and shoot him. Never fight an even battle. Another attack occurred, whether organized by her or a simple random act of violence inspired by the climate of tension. Late at night, unknown vandals threw rocks at my house, breaking all the windows. I rented an apartment in the suburbs and began to slink down public streets, breathing anxiously. I had the impression that a thug might jump out and shoot me at any moment, but after a few days I became ashamed of giving way to such panic. I thought of a koan from the secret book. Master Ungo meditated with his disciples in a place known as the Dragon Door. One day, one of the monks was bitten on the leg by a serpent. Master Butsugen said to Ungo, "How can your disciple be bitten by a serpent at the Dragon Door?" Ungo replied by jerking up his leg as if he had been bitten by a serpent and calmly saying, "Ouch." In China, the mythical dragon is the guardian of hidden treasure. In order to attain immortality, the hero must conquer this powerful adversary. The terrestrial dragon grows wings and is transformed into the celestial dragon. In other words, the self cannot prevail until it has integrated and tamed unconscious drives. But Suzhen's question insinuates that the perfect dragon, the enlightened monk, should not fall victim to the evils of the material world, the serpent's bite. But Ungo avoids this trap, suggesting that awakening does not exempt us from animal nature. When he imitates being bitten, he demonstrates that it is a mistake to think of awakening as an escape from pain. When in pain, the awakened human being accepts it with an untroubled mind. My understanding of this koan enabled me to accept my symptoms of fear without shame. I remembered another koan, the Diamond Sutra, says that when a person is ridiculed by others, the sins of their previous lives are the cause. Yet, at the moment, by submitting to ridicule, the sins of their previous lives are erased. Is this so? The response: repulsive idiot born through an anus. The sutra interprets evils of the present as the result of sins committed in previous lives and affirms that redemption and liberation reside in these very evils. Yet, The disciples' insulting reply means that it is useless merely to justify an evil by looking for its cause in previous lives. We must face the present difficulty before us immediately without stopping to wonder about its cause or worrying about the consequences of our present actions. When confronted with an attack, what counts is a response that is unencumbered by mental doubts. If we allow even a hair's breadth to appear between being and non-being, we lose our life. The second koan returned to me, myself. I understood that feeling fear was natural, but that this fear need not become cowardice. So I stopped slinking around and made a phone call to ANDA, the National Actors Union. Invoking my union rights, I demanded a meeting with the Tigress to decide who had the legal rights to produce the show. At 10 in the morning the very next day, a noisy crowd was gathered around the entrance to ANDA. My actors were there as well as the actors of the rival troupe and a swarm of journalists. The diva did not deign to appear, but she had sent 2 muscular bodyguards. They gave me menacing looks and showed me the machine guns they had hidden in golf bags. As a representative at this dispute, which she felt certain of winning because of her political connections, she had sent the Argentine singer. Parroting his boss, he proclaimed my dishonesty in front of the union officials. When I realized that these bureaucrats were looking at me with ill-concealed contempt, and that the mocking journalists were harassing me with their flashes, I decided to resort to the weapon of lies myself, but on a grander scale. Instead of limiting the scope of the scandal to a simple dispute among theater people, I decided to make it into a political affair that would affect the whole country. End quotes. The Tigress has informed me that every 2 months, carrying a diplomatic passport, she travels to Switzerland in a Mexican military jet. She delivers a trunk full of gold, which the President has stolen from the public treasury to be deposited in a Swiss bank. This caused such a stir that all the officials left their desks and went off to consult with their superiors. A deadly silence filled the building. Little by little, the journalists left. The Argentine was summoned to the telephone. He listened, nodding his head several times, and hung up, looking toward me as if I were invisible. He left the building, followed by his associates and the 2 guerrillas. The union officials finally returned with the verdict. Both rival theater troupes would perform the premiere of Lucretia on the same day at the same time with the same music, costumes, and sets. The public would decide which performance was the most deserving.